Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Stars and Stripes, where we talk raw, unfiltered football. I'm Kenny Anderson. You can find us on NFLpodcast.com, on SiriusXM, the SiriusXM radio app, and we are live on YouTube today. And you can find all our past episodes on those as well. And joining me today is longtime teammate, great friend, Bengals all-time leading scorer, never missed a kick in overtime, Jimmy Breach. And Jimmy, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Kay. One more week, huh?
Yeah, well, and Jimmy and I are flying by ourselves today. That Anthony Munoz, normally one of our co-hosts, there's got to be some Hall of Fame stuff today. You know, that Hall of Fame just gets in the way of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
What the heck? I mean, come on, he's only in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And then Dave Lapham has his best day of the year going on today. It's Grandparents' Day at his grandkids' school. And trust me, I've been to a few of those. That is the highlight of my year when I get to go to Grandparents' Day.
Yeah, can't miss those, Kay. I'm with you.
Well, Jimmy, we've had a lot of great week after games the last 10 weeks in a row, and all of a sudden it kind of comes to a screeching halt. And that it's a funny feeling, when the season ends abruptly like that.
Really is, isn't it? Because you've been going every week. You're getting ready for another game, and they're going in there thinking they're going to be playing the next game, and it is very abrupt. It's like, what do I do now? Yeah, so it is. It's tough. That last game, and then the way you lose it and everything it makes it difficult.
Well, and this was a typical Bengals Kansas City game. The way it turns out, it goes out down to the last minute. Excuse me. And I thought we were going to get another overtime game. It didn't work out, but we'll kind of talk about that in a minute. But, I thought right from the beginning, I was a little bit nervous because we've been getting off to fast starts the last several weeks. And all of a sudden this week, we got off to that slow start.
Yeah, that was more indicative of the first two times we played Kansas City, the way it started off. But somehow they seem to always turn it around and get right back in the game. And, there's only really, if you think about it, there's one game the entire season, the Cleveland game on Halloween, where even when they got behind, I mean, every other game was a 3-point game or a 2-point game. So, yeah, it was different than what they've had, but they turned it around quickly.
Well, and again, you're the last two teams standing in the AFC, and arguably the two best teams in the AFC going head-to-head in Kansas City. And I guess I'll toss this out right now. I was really nervous going into the game when the mayor of Cincinnati got involved in the pregame hoopla a little bit with his proclamation and talking about Burrow's father and Burrowhead Stadium and that. And I go, oh, no, we do not need this.
Yeah, it's politician sticking his foot in his mouth once again, but at least he owned up to it today or yesterday, whichever it was. And he said, hey, congratulations to them. So yeah, just don't say anything. That's act like you've been there, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And luckily it's not an election year coming up. So we'll kind of let it go at that. But, talking, the Bengals got the opening kickoff, and I say, okay, here we go, right down the field again. But all of a sudden, we get a first down, then it's a sack punt, and KC goes right down and gets a field goal to take the lead. And second series, we get a good kickoff return. We got a second down sack, and then we got to delay a game on 3rd and 18, and we punt. KC goes down and gets a field goal. And, kudos to our defense for, shutting him down and limiting the two field goals on that. And, in that second series, also, you could tell Kansas City knew they had to score some points. They tried a hook and lateral on the second series that luckily it didn't go for a big play. On the, so we're getting, kind of some sacks, in there. And then the third series, they kind of try to change it up. Also, some screen passes. We had a little success with that. We had a 3rd and long, and he hits Boyd for the first down. And okay, here we go. And we kick a field goal, and now it's 6-3. but Kansas City answers right back, goes down, and we thought that Mahomes wasn't going to be too mobile, and all of a sudden 3rd and 1 or 4th and 11 because he sacked on 3rd and 1. He rolls out, hits Kelsey for the TV. They're up 13-3. So it was kind of a weird start.
It really was, and two of their touchdowns came on 4th down plays. Bengals had that huge play to Chase late in the game on a 4th down play. It was amazing. And they were throwing, everything was on the line, right? And it showed. Because anything they can do to get in the end zone, because really you had to score touchdowns if you're going to win this game, because field goals weren't going to get it. And the way it started off, it seemed like there were going to be a lot of field goals. And the only one that mattered was the one at the very end.
Yeah, and then the following series, Joe throws his first interception in 122 playoff throws. Luckily, the defense holds him again. We get the ball backed up and kind of throws another pick, but it's negated by pass interference. So we start our drive at like the +5, and we get down to the +5, and we could at least kick a field goal before the end to kind of get a little momentum going into halftime.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal drive. Their punter, who was the All-Pro this year, had 3 balls inside the 20 and 2 of them inside the 10. And that one, obviously, the Bengals took it down the field, but it's hard. That's not typical to cover the length of the field like that to get a score. But they were able to do that. The tide seemed to be turning a little bit, and at least got you feeling like, all right, we're right back in this game.
And in Kansas City, one of the loudest places in the league to play. And isn't that the place where they've got the decibel levels always, where they kind of get the fans going, okay, here's the record, and they always seem to kind of hit the record?
Well, the way I love that stadium. It's been around since 1972, and it kind of goes up. The way it went up, and the whole idea behind it originally was that was supposed to have a roof. And that roof was going to go across the parking lot and cover the baseball stadium.
Yep.
They could go back and forth. I can't imagine back and forth like fast, but it would have taken a while. But I think they ran out of money and they weren't able to do it. But because of the way they constructed the stadium, it has caused all that noise to come right. It just reverberates. It is loud. Although I don't remember ever playing there when they had crazy large crowds. I mean, when I was with Oakland, we played there and it was a loud crowd, but we played there several times and I don't remember it being super loud compared to any other place. And they've taken it up. They're on their game.
That's for sure. And I remember back in the old days, it used to be dangerous to kind of warm up behind the benches because they had that, the chief riding the horse that would go around, and you had to be careful. There wasn't a lot of room between the benches and the wall for that horse to go. You had to keep your head on the swivel so you didn't get trampled by the horse during the game.
Anything to have an advantage.
Yeah, it was I tell you, the thing that I like about this team is, another cold day that they played in, and these guys have showed that they can play in all kinds of weather and it doesn't affect them.
True. And really, if you were just watching the game, you had no idea what the temperature was, you wouldn't have known that it was super cold. It was the only play I can remember that was really impacted by that was probably Mahomes' fumble when he went, how your hands, when it gets really cold, your hands get really dry and then get a little slick at times when he went to grip that ball and it popped out of his hand. Other than that, I don't think the cold was an impact. The wind might have been somewhat impactful, but it didn't seem like throws were going awry, or didn't seem to impact the kicks at all either.
No, it wasn't. And, I was hoping that the cold weather might affect Mahomes a little bit more with that high ankle sprain, but
right.
He was moving around much better than I thought he was going to be able to.
Yeah, he really did. And then, or Kelsey's back.
Yeah.
Cold. Yeah. I mean, both the guys, give them a lot of credit. They came and played really well, both of them.
Yeah, they've done a lot more, I think, with painkillers since we played, Jimmy.
Well, I heard that, I don't know about Kelsey, but I heard that Mahomes didn't take anything, or he didn't take a shot or anything.
No, I remember, one time we were playing in Pittsburgh, And it was my first year there. And of course, I was working with Ben Roethlisberger, and we had gone 7 or 8 weeks. And, all of a sudden in warmups, he goes, I can't throw. I can't, my shoulder. I don't know if I can play today. And I go, what? He goes into the training room. And I go into the coach's office, and, I tell my time, I said, Ben just came off the field. He was hurt and warming up. He doesn't know if he can play today. He said, oh, don't worry about it. Charlie's ready. Charlie Batch. I go into the training room, and I'm talking to the trainer because now Ben's in with the team doctor. And I go, John Norwood was the trainer. I said, John, what's going on? Kenny, you're new here. Ben just has to have something so he can get his Toradol shot. So I don't know. Maybe that's something just to kind of take the edge off of what they do. But I thought, he moved around, very well. And that was definitely his movement was a factor in games. We never really put a lot of pressure on him.
No, and I think that's one of the things they have to look at. You watch the NFC game, and both of those teams, particularly Philadelphia it wasn't just one guy, it was 4 guys bringing it. And then obviously San Francisco has both, they have a great pass rush. And then Kansas City had 55 sacks during the year, and we saw what happened in this game.
Uh-huh.
We didn't put the pressure on nearly as much. You think about this, Kansas City had 3 rookies starting the defensive backfield. But when you get the kind of pass rush they were getting, you don't have to be great back there. You just it's a short period of time, pretty much, in comparison to maybe if you sit back there and kind of look at the field and see what's going on. He had to get rid of the ball.
Yeah, I think maybe the theory was that we didn't want to. Well, let's double as many guys as we can in the secondary because he's not going to be able to buy time and make the plays down the field. But like I said, we just couldn't get to him. And but again, our defensive credit, they hold them to 23 points. Which another good effort.
Yeah, well, normally they average 29 points, and again, it seems like that 20, 27, 24, 20, at 23, 20. It's gonna be a tight game, and it's gonna be somewhere in the 20s. It seems like. I mean, the one was 34-31 the first time they played, but other than that, they seem to. Both teams' defenses seem to step up pretty well.
Yeah, and I think it hurt us in the first half when Tyler Boyd made the big catch, but then he got the quad injury and he was out. So all of a sudden, it was a little bit easier for them to go ahead and what we used to call it double the stars. The two wide receivers. So you could get T. Higgins and Jamar and do that a little bit more. And we were just having a tough time kind of matriculating the ball down the field.
Well, not only that, but then Hurst, even though he did catch a few balls, the long third down in the fourth quarter, but they were keeping him in to help with protection some too. So it took him out of the passing game, and he had Irwin. I don't think he had it. Maybe he had one throw his way.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think about both interceptions. Guys are being doubled when the interceptions happen.
Yeah, but what was nice though is the second half started. We kind of came out pretty fast, and Kansas City opening kickoff, but we 3 and punt. Great job by the defense, and then we go and Joe starts it off with a big quarterback draw for about 12 yards, and a big throw to T. Higgins versus press coverage for the TV for the touchdown, and all of a sudden we're back to a tie football game. Here we go.
Yeah, that was great. And they kept talking about it. Romo was talking about, Kansas City gets the ball, come out for the second half and blah, blah, blah. And then 3 and out, and boom, all of a sudden we're tied. And yeah, the tide was turning. Let me ask you a question. Neither team tried to run the ball much and was having much success at it. But was that something that could have done to maybe deter the pass rush a little bit? Try and run the ball a little bit, at least put them on their heels somewhat. We didn't seem to make any effort at all, and really was Burrow's running there that really about the only thing we did late in the game.
Right. He was the leading rusher on the team, and I don't think either team, made much of an effort. And I think because they know how tough it was going to be. And what we've always tried to do this year, we're in big moments, we want the ball in Joe Burrow's hands. And, which is not a bad philosophy, to have. But after we tie the game up, KC goes right down and scores again. Had a 4th and 1 and a 20-yard touchdown to Scantling, to go up again 20-3. And, we would try to answer again. We get a big play, but we're called for holding. We have to punt. And, here we're back down to a 7-point game again.
Yeah, interesting. Again, they score on a 4th and 1, and both of the 4th downs they scored on wasn't like they threw the ball a yard just to get the yard.
No,
they went down the field, and Mike Hilton probably misses that ball by a couple of inches. Talk about a game of inches.
Yeah,
he was so close to getting a hand on that. So, give them credit. They came through with the play. But if you think about it, in both cases, that their guys were one-on-one with our guys versus, even Chase's big catch later, he was double teamed. And so, it's just, it's one of those things where you're trying to make plays, and they made the plays there.
and then, after that, you talked about earlier, Jimmy, Mahomes doesn't handle the shotgun snap, and Sam Hubbard recovers, and we couldn't do anything with that one turnover that Kansas City gave us.
Yeah, just like Kansas City ended up not doing anything with the two interceptions. They didn't score off of those either. So really, they weren't impactful apart from field position and taking time off the clock.
And then the next series, you talk about 4th down plays. Here it is, 4th and 6. And we don't throw for the first down. We got a little double move by Chase going down the field, and he kind of splits defenders and makes a great catch, and which leads to Pirine's, TD. So, again, here we go. Your stars making plays.
Yeah. It's interesting. You watch him run that play, and the trailing guy was trying to catch up. The safety the throw was perfect. If there's nobody there, the throw's perfect. But even the throw was there. There's 2 guys there, but neither of them were able, because the throw was so good and he really beat them, but they had no play on the ball. He caught the ball, and they kind of just looked at each other like, oh, man, what do we do here? He might have been double teamed, but he really wasn't double teamed.
Yeah. And then we kind of go, we get to that, the let's repeat 3rd down play again. And, you hate to talk about officiating, because you hope the game goes through and you don't notice the officials, but I think they got noticed a little bit too much in this one.
What I find interesting is these guys are the highest graded officials there are. The highest will be in the Super Bowl, but these are the next group that are phenomenal. I think one of the things I know what they do is they take the highest grades from each position and make a team out of it. I wonder if they would be better off keeping their groups together as a team and taking the highest graded teams versus individuals. I know they started doing that several years ago, but it was a mess. They did the right thing. If you think about it, they started the clock. They weren't supposed to, because there'd been an incomplete pass, and somewhere along the way, somebody tried to stop the play. Who knew? I don't think anybody knew except maybe the guy running in to try and stop it. Other than that, nobody knew. Everybody played the play.
Yeah. So, but so it goes down. It's 20-20. Defense forces a punt. We get the ball, 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go. It's time for Joey B and the game-winning drive. Here we almost went.
Yeah, kind of reminiscent of the Rams game in the Super Bowl last year, and the same type of thing occurred, didn't it? Where we just couldn't quite. When you need to have, if you think about it, you're in this position. At every position, that's all you ever want. You want to get into the Super Bowl, or you're in the Super Bowl. You got to make the best block of your life. You got to make the biggest play of your life. And each time it's been a defending player that's come up with that huge play. Aaron Donald and Chris Jones, and just it's unfortunate and it's frustrating at times.
Well, and I thought Kansas City really had a good scheme with their pass rush, because they were almost lining up their defensive tackles inside our our offensive tackles and then wide defensive ends. So all of a sudden, Karras, the center, I mean, he's got to check the middle linebacker, and he almost is not in a position to help anywhere on the offensive line. So they're getting 4 singles, blocks basically without having to do anything pressure-wise.
Yeah, not dissimilar to what the Rams did in the second half last year, where they were doubling Donald. They put a linebacker over the center, and he couldn't really ignore that. And all of a sudden, Donald's one-on-one, and he starts winning. Chris Jones, they were moving him all over the line, and he made a great play. Considering that he'd never had a sack in the playoffs before, and he had two yesterday.
Well, and he's normally a defensive tackle. They moved him out to defensive end for that one play. He's played a couple snaps out there, but so then talk to me about
work, didn't it?
Yeah, talk to me about the punt then, Jimmy. They get about a 21-yard punt return on it, and I think I saw several blocking the backs on that punt as they were trying to cover it. But do you really want the punt going right down the middle of the field in that situation? Should we try to angle it?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, they had been doing a lot of that during the season. He'd been doing a great job going right with it. It was actually a 29-yard return, and Darren Simmons was going crazy on the side. He comes running up the field. Yeah, to your point, blocks in the back, whatever the case might be. I think Drew Chrisman, as the season went on, his punts got lower and lower, and it really put so much pressure on the coverage guys. When the guys got the ball and there's 15, 20 yards, there's a lot of room for him to decide where he wants to go. And then you throw in a couple of illegal blocks, and all of a sudden, now you're in business for Kansas City. So the unfortunate thing is they're definitely going to have to bring in some competition for Drew. And I'm not sure what happened during the year where he started hitting these line drives. Now he was, to your point, he was hitting the ball to the right really well. He hit some great balls out of bounds. If you can cut the field down to a third, then it's much, even on the line drive, there's not much room there. So you kind of keep them in that third of the field. But when it goes down to the middle of the field and you can go either way, that's a tough one to cover. And then if you have a couple blocks in the back, then all of a sudden you have a 29-yard return.
Yeah, and then of course we know what happens after that. They got a long field goal, and Mahomes scrambles, and Joseph Ossai pushed him when he was clearly out of bounds. But I think we saw an incident earlier in the game when somebody shoved Burrows when he was that far out of bounds, and nothing was called, and which kind of set up the field goal. And Joseph Ossai had been playing so well in that game. He's had a great year. I mean, after missing all last year with injury. And, I just feel sorry for that kid, but I was so proud of the way that his teammates stood up for him.
Yeah, although Jermaine Pratt wasn't too happy.
Well, yes,
I think he came back here recently and made a comment that, he felt bad. So Ossai, what I read, his comment was, he was so intent of trying to get to Mahomes and not allow him. So if a guy's going backwards when he goes out of bounds, they keep running the clock. He was trying to get him so he could pull him back,
right? Which
I don't know if that had kept him the same effect of a guy coming the other way. So that was kind of what he had. And he said, I didn't realize we were out of bounds. He was so intent on the play. So from one aspect, he's really being smart and trying to get him to go in backwards. So if that, and keep the clock running in those last 8 seconds. The unfortunate part is he forgot where he was on the field. And then it looked like he tore his knee up. Now, maybe not hyperextension, but nobody's talked about that yet. The last few weeks, he's played really well. And he was probably the only guy putting pressure on Mahomes on Sunday.
And like I say, and then all of a sudden, whistle goes off, game over, and it's the off season, and that's a tough feeling. The only I can kind of equate it to, Jimmy, is after our Super Bowl year when we had the strike year, but we still were tied for the best record in the NFL going into the playoffs, and we got a home playoff game again. Okay, here goes the run. We're going to go back there, and we get beat, in that game by the Jets. And it was like, what just happened?
Yeah. And if you remember, we got up 14-0.
Yes.
We were up 14-0, and then Freeman McNeil ran around the left side for like 206 yards on us.
Mhm.
And talk about setting the edge. There was no edge that day, and they ended up blowing us out. Yeah, that was yeah, you kind of go in and it's shell shock. You sit in there, it's like, is this it? We're done now?
Yeah. I mean, like I say, and I was so excited about it. The first year I always said in '81, if we're going to go to the Super Bowl, this will be it, because it won't be in California or Arizona or New Orleans or Florida. It'll be in Pontiac, Michigan. So I was looking forward to next year. Now we get to go somewhere nice for this thing, and then it kind of ended. So, but what I think Zach said it well. It stings, but you have to take a lot of pride in how the season went. I mean, you look at the defending world champions, Los Angeles Rams. They didn't sniff the playoffs this year. And usually it's the team that loses that has the hangover. Right. And then here we go back to the AFC Championship game. I think that says a lot about our players, a lot about the talent level on this team, and a lot about our coaches.
I agree wholeheartedly, because, yeah, you're right. It usually is the losing team has the Super Bowl hangover, and the Bengals started off like they had that hangover. I think it's more fact they just hadn't played much. And once they got it together, I mean, 10 in a row is not shabby at all. How about 10 in a row for us, 11 in a row for San Francisco, and both get beat on the same day? Yeah, it's exciting what they have, what they put together. To your point, the coaching staff, I think, has done a phenomenal job. So I got to ask you, Bill Callahan and Lou Anarumo are interviewing for this job with the Cardinals. Callahan's going back to Indy for another one. So here you have this defense that is really built on Lou Anarumo's philosophy, his idea. He pulled it together. I mean, think about it. They stuck with him when they were terrible, because he had a philosophy that Zach Taylor believed in, and obviously convinced the family and Duke Tobin, let's draft to this philosophy. What if he gets that job? And then you have a guy's head, his philosophy's kind of in his head. And I'm sure he's been teaching, obviously been teaching it all along, making these adjustments, because you're talking to coaches all the time. But we've seen it where things aren't quite as good. We've also seen it where the coach leaves and all of a sudden they just pick it up and continue with it, and in some cases make it better. So yeah. There's always that uncertainty when coaches start getting interviews.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about that more a little bit later on when we talk about what's going to happen upcoming in the off season.
Okay. Yeah.
No, you mentioned San Francisco losing. We're going to take a quick break right now and come back and let's talk a little bit about that NFC Championship game. Stay right here. More with Stars and Stripes in just a minute. Welcome back to Stars and Stripes. I'm Kenny Anderson along with Jimmy Breach. We kind of wrapped up the Bengals season, and I should say something, Jimmy. I mean, I think I could go down here. I mean, I got my sweatshirt on, my Stars and Stripes sweatshirt. I know you've got yours on as well.
Yeah.
If you want any Stars and Stripes gear, you can go to millions.co, shop for Stars and Stripes, and get your family looking good, just like we are. And these hoodies, now that I'm up in Cincinnati full time, Jimmy, are coming real handy.
Yeah, wasn't it the date when you start to move up here was when it was like minus 30
Yeah.
a few weeks back, right?
Yeah. And then somebody said, doesn't this remind you of the San Diego game?
Yeah.
I said, no. I said, I don't go outside unless it's 59 below. You got to get another 30 degrees before I'll even worry about it. But no, but we got, I think it's going to be another good Super Bowl matchup. I guess I was kind of secretly hoping that it could be the Bengals 49ers in that game, and Joe Burrow could, erase the curse of Joe Montana on us. But, we didn't make it there. But and I was a little bit disappointed, in how the game went when Brock Purdy got hurt. I mean, he's had such a miraculous run for the 49ers, and he got hurt early, and it was kind of, the game is over then.
Really was. And I mean, they were just relentless. Philadelphia is relentless on the pass rush. And he was not having much time to throw. They were really struggling to move the ball. The one touchdown they had, Christian McCaffrey had just an unbelievable run to score the touchdown. They weren't doing anything, even with Purdy in there. I just think Philadelphia this might be their year. We'll see how obviously Andy Reid always has some things up his sleeve, but I think they're tough to slow down, and that running game they have is tough to slow down.
Yeah, no, that was it. Because Jalen Hurts did not have one of his better games. Took care of the football, okay, but it was the running game and the defense that kind of carried them. And although we saw flashes of what he could do because he's such an explosive player, so kind of it'll be interesting. A real young quarterback making his first appearance, headed up against Pat Mahomes. Well, now this will be his third time in the big game.
That's amazing. It's the third time in 5 years. That's really exceptional. In 5 years in a row playing at home in the AFC Championship, that's crazy how good that is. But they've got their work cut out for them against Philadelphia. It'll be interesting to see how the game plays out.
Yeah, and both the home teams won, which is kind of I don't know what the statistics are, but it's one hell of an advantage if you could play that last game at home. And I think that's one of the things that was so exciting about us in 81 and 88 is that we had home field advantage all through the playoffs. And, I give credit for Joe Burrow to getting us, having to go on the road, all except the first two playoff games in each run. But I think that's what all of them talk about is the importance now of getting that home field advantage, being a number one seed.
Great. As you said, being at home was a huge advantage. They don't seem to mind going on the road there. I mean, they take the challenge and they're up for it. So I think it's just we'll play wherever you want to play, and we'll take on any and all comers. So yeah, it'd be great for the city too to be able to play one of those games at home or several, hopefully down the road.
Well, I hope one of the things, of course, they were going to move the AFC Championship game, had it been Buffalo or KC, to a neutral site because, the Buffalo-Cincinnati game was canceled. Then there was some talk that maybe they just make a permanent deal that all the championship games are going to be at a neutral site. I think that would be the worst thing in the world for the NFL to do. There's too much excitement, too much earned with the number one seed, to play for all year long, to have that game in your stadium.
I agree. You have the neutral site is what the Super Bowl is. This isn't college. People want the opportunity to have that home field advantage. I mean, they've earned, like you said, they've earned it. They've played hard. Yeah, they got a week off that nobody else got. But is that all you're going to get? I mean, we want to see our teams play as the number one seed. We want to see them play at home, and I think they should play at home.
Oh, no question about it. And, I know what an advantage it was for us. And obviously the weather played a big part in it. But still in 88, with your team with Boomer, having that game at home is very meaningful.
Absolutely. And being the number one seed, we got a bye, and that was huge because we were pretty banged up, and they gave us some time to get some guys healthy, which we didn't have. If we'd had to play the following week, I think we'd have been in trouble.
Yeah, how would you like to be the Kelsey's parents? Jason and we got the tight end for Kansas City, the center for Philly. What do you do as a parent in those situations?
I think you get one of those split jerseys, and you root for your kid to do really well, and however the chips fall, they fall. But you want everybody to do well. Oh, Jason Kelsey has already said he's been grooming his replacement. This is going to be his last year, so he's going out playing in the Super Bowl, and it's pretty amazing. The Kelsey brothers are both going to end up in the Hall of Fame, and that's pretty amazing.
Well, then don't you think it's only fair that the parents are secretly rooting for Jason to get one? Travis has already got one. He's been in the AFC Championship game 5 years in a row. This will be his third Super Bowl. I mean, let your big brother have one before he retires.
He has one from a couple of years ago. Nick Folk, they both have one.
Oh, okay. Then all bets are off. My bad.
So they don't care. Whoever wins, wins. And that's for bragging rights for the brothers, I'm sure, as much as anything.
Which brother has to pay for their parents to go?
That's a good one.
Huh? I don't know. I guess which one's the home team? I haven't heard that yet. And whoever's the home team's got to pay for their parents to get there. Make sure you get them a nice hotel room, all that other good stuff.
Maybe one pays for the airfare, the other one pays for the hotel room or something.
Okay, well, as long as it wasn't, as long as you don't have to pay for the alcohol bill with my parents, and they would have been in good shape. But anyways, I think it'll be an exciting Super Bowl. We'll have a couple of weeks to talk about that. But in the meantime, let's take a quick break, Jimmy. Come back and let's talk about what the Bengals have to deal with this offseason. So we'll be right back with more Stars and Stripes in just a minute.
Sounds good. I gotta let the dog out.
You got. Henderson, along with my teammate Jimmy Breach, and we hope you're watching us live on YouTube. You can also catch us on NFLpodcast.com and on the SiriusXM app. And Jimmy, now it's the off season. You know, it's you go in and you have your last meeting and your exit interviews and pack up your lockers and head it out. And, you know, a little bit different than at least when I played for most of my career, because that meant I had to start my job the next week, usually. You know, 'cause we all worked in the off season. We weren't making enough money to make it to the next year. But, you know, now it's a little bit different. And I think, you know, you talked about it a little bit earlier, but one of the big things for the Bengals this year is continuity of their coaching staff, which has been a real key. And you mentioned, you know, Lou Anarumo getting, you know, an interview with Arizona, Brian Callahan with Arizona, and a second interview in Indianapolis. And so, you know, it's and I know Zach has handled it the right way and loves both those guys, the job that they do. But, you know, if they get a head coaching job, you got to wish them well.
That's why you do it, right? I mean, you hope to have that opportunity down the road. And so you've got to figure Lou Anarumo's been doing it for a long time and finally got to be a defense coordinator. I know that there were times when he and Zach, when they were coaching together, talked philosophies a lot on defense and on offense. And part of that is why he was brought in to be the defensive coordinator. When Zach really liked the things that his ideas, and he's almost become Belichickian in the way he adjusts and the different defenses he runs every week. And a lot of credit to the players, because it's not easy to make those adjustments every week where you're almost like you're playing a different defense on a regular basis. And so they've done a great job, but that's a credit to him, his coaching and his coaching staff. The staff he has done a phenomenal job too. So credit all around, because they've done it. They've put a really great coaching staff together. And you know as well as I do, okay, if you're not, you know, if you're the head coach, and like in Forrest Gray's case, he was not calling plays like Zach is. He's more of the CEO. It's really your individual coaches are the ones that are, if you do a great job there, that's when the team's going to be good. If you have individual coaches who don't do a great job, your team's probably going to struggle.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you look at this coaching staff and, you know, you talk to the great coaches and they always say, well, we're teachers first. And I think that epitomizes this coaching staff and how they've developed young players. I mean, you go, you know, all of a sudden, you know, with Trent Irwin coming, you know, a wide receiver, the fourth wide receiver coming in and making contributions. Wilcox, a backup tight end. You know, the line, although they take a lot of credit, backups have done a credible job, you know, in there. The same thing with the defense. So it's, you know, they've got their guys well prepared and they make them better players.
Absolutely have. And I think you look at the defensive backfield, some of the young guys that made great contributions. You know, Cam Taylor-Britt has really solidified himself at one of the corners. So, and then Dax Hill finally got an opportunity to play a little bit more the latter part of the year. So, yeah, there's some young guys doing some great things. It's exciting. It's exciting. You got some young defensive linemen. They're making contributions from Osai and Sample and, you know, and Carter. And guys are, it's happening. And the coaches are a big reason for it.
You know, and I know one of the things the head coach always says at the last meeting is, you know, this is the last time this team will ever be together again. There's going to be change. And I think that's the next thing to talk about, Jimmy, is the Bengals have a lot of guys whose contracts are up. You know, from a starting standpoint, you know, Von Bell, Jesse Bates, Eli Apple, Jermaine Pratt, Hayden Hurst. You look at, you know, Trey Flowers, you know, a backup, Samaje Perine, a backup. And then I saw this other list. You know, you got long snapper Clark Harris, Max Sharping, you know, who played at the end of the year. Our backup quarterback, Brandon Allen. Another wide receiver, Trent Taylor. Cornerback, Jalen Davis. Running back, Travion Williams. Linebacker, Joe Bacci. Tight end, Mitchell Wilcox. Linebacker, Clay Johnston. Long snapper, Cal Adamitis. Holy mackerel. You know, where do you start on this? And plus the fact that they can start negotiating with Joe Burrow after this season. And they got to make decisions coming up on T. Higgins, Joe Mixon, Logan Wilson, Tyler Boyd. So, whoa, it's going to be a busy off season for the front office.
It is a whoa. Some of those guys, the last guys you mentioned, are next year, potentially, or next year in 24. I really think you probably need to address Joe Burrow as early as you can, don't you think? I mean, the new cap came out at $225 million. That's like almost 17 million more than what it was this year. So that frees up a little bit, right? I mean, that's more than what they were dealing with last year. Does Joe Burrow do a Patrick Mahomes and give a team-friendly deal? And maybe they do it over 10 years and they stretch it out and they do a lot of bonuses versus guaranteed money, which, the Bengals typically, if you sign a contract with the Bengals, unless you really screw up and just don't play well at all, you're probably going to play out that contract. And you're probably going to get all the bonus money because a lot of times they front load their bonus money. So you make a lot of money early and then it frees them up at the end if they have to make decisions. But you still have, if you play well, you have a chance to make some really good money. So there's got to be ways, Kansas City has shown that you can do it. And they still have some really talented players all over the place besides Mahomes. But they did have 3 rookies starting in the defensive backfield who played really well because they have so much pressure too. So, but Joe Burrow, don't you think Joe Burrow's got to be where they start?
I think that's going to determine, a lot of different things. And, you mentioned Mahomes' deal. You can't feel too bad for him because he's making $45 million a year. But I think it was that he went out 10 years.
And that's a team friendly.
Yeah,
that's a team friendly deal.
But that he went out, 10 years. And I think, one of the things in this, Jimmy, is, when you get the Players Association involved a little bit, and they don't want guys taking friendly deals. They want them to max out what their worth is, I think, for everybody else in the league. So you've got, as you're trying to do the contract, you've got all this push and the pull there. And man, I really like to keep, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase together for a while. And boy, we like, it's just, there's a lot that goes into this. And I don't envy, either Joe or Katie Brown having to try to get this one done.
Yeah, I think it was Mahomes, for instance. Yes, it was 45 million, but I think it only was 31 million against the salary cap, the way it's structured. So something like that would free up, signing another guy potentially, depending how you structure it. I know the Bengals always are looking for those types of structures that are going to benefit the team. Now, as well as I do, ultimately, it's up to you, not the agent, whether there's pushback or not. All right, the NFLPA wants you to get as much as you could, max it out. But if I'm the player, I'm not playing. I mean, like he's already mentioned, think about this. If you make 45 million or 35 million, and you do that for 8 or 10 years, you're going to be pretty well set either way, right? You're in good shape.
Yeah.
But these guys aren't playing. At that point, they're playing for titles. They're playing for Lombardis. And, what does Burrow said? I don't spend any of the money I make now. I just, whatever I made in endorsements is what I use. So to him, winning is probably going to be more. So it will be interesting on the pushback they get, how they structure this. And obviously it's going to be a big number no matter what it is.
Right. And then the other little tidbit, I heard that the Bengals have the 4th most salary cap room of any team in the league. So they're going to need that with the guys coming up. So that's going to be interesting to follow. That's going to be great conversations for us on Stars and Stripes as we lead up to free agency, in this one. But, I think, the other thing now all of a sudden is they get more of a normal off season. That they played, an extra 2 or 3 weeks last year with the Super Bowl, and Zach did a great job of kind of, pushing things back, shortening things. And, I think they get back to a little bit more of a normal routine this year.
Yeah, I would agree. Although if they feel like that still worked out okay, that it might give the guys a little bit more rest. He might do something similar again this year. Although they, depending on the amount of turnover they have, they almost might be forced to have a full off season of work just because they might have a fair number of new players.
Well, yes, and or new coordinators. You know, when you're talking about
Yes.
a new defensive coordinator, possibly a new offensive coordinator, there are similarities, but there are differences. Depending on who you lose in free agency, all of the guys that were backups are now going to be projected as starters. You know, they're going to need more reps as we go through this thing. But I think the one thing that I have a lot of confidence in Zach is he's got a good pulse on the team. He knows what they need. He listens to what the veteran players say, you know, and the lines of communications are great. And, you know, okay, we need a little bit more of this, maybe a little bit less of this. And I think that's, you know, to a man, I mean, all these guys is that, you know, we want to stay in Cincinnati. You know, we like the culture, we like the staff. You know, and Joe even talks about, I think the front office is doing a great job. And, you know, all of a sudden those comments, you know, we're saying, were they talking about the Bengals? You know, we didn't hear that, you know, 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, Carson Palmer couldn't wait to get out of here. And they made him the face of the franchise. But, you know, I think they created a culture where people want to come. They hear Ted Karras, you know, that come from a Super Bowl winning team and said, man, what a breath of fresh air it is to play here. I really like the guys here and how they do it. Just bodes well for this team.
It really does. It hasn't been a destination place very often. A little bit during the time with Marvin, you know, when they had the five playoffs in a row, seemed like guys wanted to come play for Marvin. But to now it's like, I want to go play with Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow can take you somewhere.
Right.
And plus the culture in the locker room, the great leadership they have. You know, a DJ Reader, that's somebody, I mean, you want to keep that guy. You want to keep that guy around. So, and they've got some tough decisions to make there. You know, Jesse Bates and Von Bell are both up. You got Dax Hill, and maybe that's why they brought him in to kind of groom him. You know, I was looking at Spot Track on the free agency stuff, and then they give you an idea of where they think they're going to be coming in. Jesse Bates made 13 this year. They've got him 4 years at 14 million a year. That's really not any different than what he was making, $1 million. Right. But I think that's about what the Bengals offered him last year, and he wanted to be up there with the top guys. And I don't know if the last 2 years it's shown that he should be up there with the top guys. But 13 or 14 a year or even 12 for 4 years, $50 million is not too shabby. That's for sure.
No, I'll take that right now, Jimmy.
However, somebody might come in and throw more money in. You know, the trade-off is money versus the opportunity to win. But if the money goes and someplace where you can win too, that's certainly something. I mean, guys, it's maybe the only time they have a big contract. So guys have to certainly think of that.
Well, and then I think the other thing is that I think other teams will covet our players, you know, because they've done a great job of drafting these guys that love football, love practice, are great leaders, you know, and when you're looking, you know, obviously signing free agents will make your team better. Hey, I want these guys. They know how to win. They know the right way to do it. They are leaders in the locker room. So that's the other tug going on is people want your guys.
Yeah. You know, when you start releasing guys during training camp and they get scooped up, you know, you're putting together a good roster, right?
Yeah.
Versus you let guys go and nobody ever gets picked up, but you think, I guess maybe we're not that good. But the Bengals people want the players from the Bengals, and part of it is the culture, as you said. That locker room's a big deal. You know as well as I do, our 81 Super Bowl, our 88 had great culture, great locker rooms. Guys got along well. They played hard for one another, believed in one another. To this day, are really good friends. So that you don't have to have it, but it certainly helps because then guys they want to go out and perform. They want to help their teammates. They want to, you want to play. You don't want to let the guys down, really.
Yep. Jimmy, before we get together next week, there's one more game to be played. What are your thoughts on the Pro Bowl this year now becoming a flag football game?
It's got to be better than what they've been having the last several years. I kind of like the idea, actually. From this reason, flag football is becoming much more popular. I started playing flag football. I think it would show people that you can transition. You play flag football, you can transition if you choose to into playing football. However, there's still a chance guys could get hurt. I mean, you get in a close game at the end, guys are going to play a little bit harder. You go up for a ball or something, just like Tyler Eifert, tearing up his ankle and was never the same after, doing that in the Pro Bowl. So there's still a chance guys getting hurt, but probably less so. But I'd rather see this. I like the skills. I enjoy the skills stuff. I don't even know if they need the game as much as I just like to do, like the skills.
Yeah, I go back. I remember my first Pro Bowl in 1973, and it was down in New Orleans, and John Madden was the coach of the AFC. And I remember going in, he's running the projector in practice. I go, well, when does the head coach really runs the projector in the offensive meeting? And it was kind of a weird deal going on. And I got to call my own plays, which was great. I go, oh, God, what do I do? And I look in the back, and there's Franco Harris and there's O.J. Simpson. Handing off to one of those guys is not too bad a deal. And but you did get hit in those games. But I remember it wasn't taken too seriously because the winning team got $1,000 and the losing team got $500. But and that was the same way when I went back in '75, and the game was in Seattle, but we practiced in San Diego all week, which was nice for the golf game. And again, it was the same thing. And so I was the backup that year. So I'm going in the fourth quarter, and Burt Jones was the starter. And, so we're winning, and Chuck Noll was our head coach. And I remember the game was almost kind of over, and I'm still throwing the ball. And they're yelling at me, Kenny, what the heck's going on? Run the ball. Let's get out of here. I said, Chuck Noll just wants to know he's got pass plays in his game plan. But then the other great story about that game is the rules are very basic, no stunning, all that on defense. And, the NFC was getting behind and started to cheat a little bit. And so Chuck Noll gets pissed. He calls all the Steelers defensive guys over. There were 10 of them. He says, grab one more guy, go out there and play our shit. And we started playing 2-man, all this other stuff. But of course, that was fun. But when it got a little bit more serious was I went out in '81 to Hawaii when the winners got 10,000 and the losers got 5,000. So for 5,000, the game became a little bit more serious.
I bet it did. Think about this too. For years, they had a consolation game. The teams that didn't make it to the Super Bowl played basically a third place game. This would have been this coming week, the week before. That's great. Think about it. Think about the Bengals going out and playing against the 49ers this coming weekend. That would have been nuts.
Yeah. But, but when I think back about, even though, Jimmy, $1,000, if you win that game, heck, that was a game check for me back in those days. That was one extra game check, and, when it got up to 10,000, all right, it's got my, this is, more than a game check for me. Now from the player standpoint, they're making so much money nowadays. You can't take the chance to end your career doing that. But, I think the guys that are going to be the stars of the game, maybe the two coaches for the flag football game, Peyton and Eli.
Could be. It could be. Yeah, you never know what those two might say and do. And I think that's certainly one of the reasons they're doing it, by these guys are doing it, give them somebody to look at, right?
Yeah. But for those guys that did make the Super Bowl, it's a nice chance to go and get a nice paid vacation with your family. So it'll be a good deal. Yeah. But there's no vacations for us, Jimmy. We got to come back next week and talk about the Super Bowl, see what's going on with the Bengals. And So we're going to do that, and hopefully we'll have Anthony back and Dave back. And like I said, I can't wait to talk to Lapham. That's the best. When you go to your grandparents' day at school, that is the best day ever, especially if you get to stay for lunch.
Yeah.
Then it's a great day. But
Although
Jimmy,
I did one of those, KA, and I got the pizza. Okay, it was not good. It was like a cardboard pizza. And it's like, oh, Grandpa, I think it's gluten free, and it's all these. Like, why didn't you tell me that before I got it?
yeah, I'll go back. That first thing I remember is lunch at schools. That I never had lunch at school. I got in high school. You walked home for lunch from grade school. So, but that's another story for the ancient ages. That
You're showing your age there, KA.
I know when I grew up, but now it's getting to stuff we're just boring everybody. And if you join us on YouTube, thank you for being with us live today. And you can always catch past episodes on YouTube. You can catch us on the Sirius XM app or on NFLpodcast.com. And I know for Dave Lapham and Anthony Munoz, and Jimmy, great as always. And let's do this again next week.
Sounds great, KA. See you then.
All right. Stars and Stripes, we're going to wrap it up for right now. And thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.